All right. Good morning, West Morris Regional High School District. My name is Matt Ferrari. I'm Director of School Counseling here for the district. This year, we're starting something new. Each month, we'd like to release a podcast for all things school counseling. And to help us with that today, I am joined by Mr. Robert Franek, Editor-in-Chief of the Princeton Review, and we'll talk a little bit about college admissions. Rob, how are you today?
Matt, I'm fine. Thanks for the invitation. I've been super excited for this.
No, we're thrilled to have you. About 6 years ago, you were kind enough to come and speak to the community of West Morris Regional. I figured it's been far too long, so wanted to touch base and get your expertise on what's going on in the world of college admissions.
Love it. Happy to do it.
All right, great. Princeton Review just put out a new publication last month. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about
Our newest book, and I've been co-author for this book for now many years, and it's an annual edition, and the book is called The Best 391 Colleges. And I'd like to say that we actually write it at the Princeton Review, but the truth is we surveyed a little over 170,000 current college students, asking them questions, everything from their opinion about their experience academically at their school, from a social life perspective, quality of life, their experience with faculty, with administrators, career services, financial aid. So it's the idea, we've been doing this book for now 34 years, 34th edition this past year. So we're in such a unique position to survey nearly 200,000 students each year, asking them those questions, and then creating narrative, long-form narrative about what those students told us. I also do a bunch of ranking lists in that book as well. There are 50 ranking lists altogether, ordered from 1 to 25. Again, based all on that student opinion, your opinion about your experience with financial aid, or are your professors engaging, any number of different things that we think are important. And it's had such great reception from college-bound students and their parents for a long time. I also put it up on our website, which princetonreview.com, so you can choose to buy the book. You could choose to look at it online. It doesn't really matter to me, but it's all, can you have the vernacular, the conversation, once you're reading this stuff, to say, hey, I went to Drew, not too far from you guys. Yeah, is that a good fit for me? Or maybe I'm better at Vassar or NYU, and should give you the vernacular to have that conversation.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
So here's my question for you about rankings. What are people to take? What are people to take from rankings? Right, a lot of different entities out there rank colleges and universities in different ways. What should students and parents really consider and think about when looking at different types of rankings?
I so appreciate this question, because let's just say this out loud. There is ranking fatigue out there. We understand that there's any number of news sources and mom and pops alike that will put out any bit of college rankings that are out there. Now, we've been doing college rankings now for 34 plus years now, not just in this book, but in other publications and other projects that we work on. I don't think that all rankings are created equal. And we've been, again, vigilant and clear, particularly in this book, Best 391 Colleges, that listen, it doesn't matter what I think about a school or my team thinks about a school at the Princeton Review. It should be the voices of current college students, what they're experiencing that world academically and otherwise, and giving them voice. I can do that. And I feel like that's where rankings are different. What you won't see at Princeton Review is the idea of a hierarchical ranking list. Schools ranked 1 to 1,001 best Northeastern colleges, or best national schools 1 to 1,700. There are 3,000 schools in the country, in the U.S. alone, and you know this super well. But the idea of just ranking them in a hierarchical list, I don't think has great value to a college-bound student or their parent, or certainly a counselor that's helping them along the way. So if you can curate that list, give students, current college students, voice so that they can advise college-bound students and their parents, and for counselors also to use that as a resource, that feels like we're completing the circuit of value to me.
No, it makes a lot of sense to me as well, Robin. And I would agree. There certainly is ranking fatigue out there. And I think confusion as well for a lot of students and parents. Often one of the major factors for students and families in selecting a school may be the prestige of the school, right? Or the name brand of the school, so to speak. But and you had mentioned fit a little bit ago, how should families think about fit when choosing school and taking in these rankings into account?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Here's the thing. Perception is significant, right? The perception and on the value that we as students or parents or counselors and all of us place in a school's brand, the perception that we have of that brand. If I get into that school, or if my kids get into that school, they're going to have a charmed life compared to if they didn't get into that school. Now, the truth is, we're not AI on this call or on this podcast. We're not AI in this conversation. So we understand that people have that perception of brand. But you and I have both been working in higher education for a long time. And I think that when we look behind the brand, we've been doing a lot of surveying at Prince Review now for many years of college-bound students and their parents. And we have a survey at Prince Review called College Hopes and Worries. And one of the questions that we ask students and parents is, what is the most important thing to you when you're choosing a school? And Matt, it is such a significant percentage choosing fit and only 11% choosing academic reputation and prestige. So when pushed a little bit, I think that students and parents are saying, hey, I still want my kids and I want myself, if I'm a student, to be happy and engaged in that place. But that doesn't always have to completely jibe with the most competitive or prestigious school in the country. And that, to me, gives me such great solace and such great faith in college-bound students and their parents, because that says, hey, I want to be happy at the school. I still want there to be return on my investment academically and financially, without question. But to me, that is the essence of finding fit. And my long soliloquy here, we talk about fit in 4 ways at Princeton Review: academic fit, campus culture fit, financial aid fit, and a career services fit. Now, you and I both know that a lot of stuff fits into those 4 channels, those 4 categories. But that, to me, and I've been talking with students and parents for a long time, that to me gives them a framework or some sort of rubric in their mind, and then they can fill those channels with whatever they want. And I feel like many of the resources that you and I do a lot of the homework to help fill those channels. But that's the idea.
No, that's great. I think the idea of those 4 areas, the academic, the campus, the financial, as well as the career services, is critical for students and parents as they're considering colleges and university. I know I have a senior myself, and that's we're looking at in all 4 of those buckets right now as she's getting ready to submit those applications. All right, great. So, Rob, like I said before, you were kind enough six years ago to come out to the school. In those 6 years, a lot has changed. And in particular, we all use the pandemic sort of as that benchmark of change in college admissions. What do you see as the biggest shifts in the admissions landscape right now?
You're right. When COVID changed everything from 2019, when we were having a conversation at your schools, and we were thinking that even at that time, there were only but there were already 1,000 schools were test optional. But come March of 2020, it went from 1,000 to nearly 3,000 schools overnight. Now, the truth is, and I feel like this is an old story, but we should just say it out loud, many of those schools still remain test optional. So to me, and I know we want to do a little soothsaying of what's going to happen with test optional, but the truth is that the majority of schools out there, 4-year colleges in the US alone, are still test optional. And I don't see that changing. There are certainly schools, the most competitive in the country. I know many students that are listening, or parents that are listening to our conversation today, might be aiming at those schools, and they are changing. The top of the most competitive schools in the country, many of them are re-embracing or have already reinstituted the requirement of SAT and ACT. But that's one big bucket, just to think about college test optional in general. The second one, Matt, to me is undeniably the rise in the popularity of AP testing. And I've been giving a lecture on this over the last couple of months, so this stuff is super fresh in my head. But in the 21st century alone, 25 years, 73% more schools are offering those tests. 264% more students are taking them, and there are over 306% more exams than there were just 25 years ago. This is just colossal. And I'm sure it's the things that particularly students across the country that are college bound are thinking about the value of AP testing. Now, listen, if you want to go down that road, I'm happy to chat you up about it, because I have a lot of that information in my head. The third one is the idea of return on your investment. So as we were talking about, one of the spokes of FIT is financial aid, and the other one is career services. And for any student and parent, I don't think that there's any taboo around students and their families asking, is that college worth my investment of time and study and family resources financially? No taboo in it, because college costs have continued to rise 2 to 3 times past the rate of inflation for the last 24 years. That's more than we could ever hope to get in our paychecks every year, Lord knows. So we have to ask the question, not only about finances and costs, but that idea of return on our investment. And to me, those are the big 3 for me, Matt.
All right. A lot to unpack.
Yeah,
there.
totally.
Let's start with the test optional piece.
Yeah.
Okay. What you said, soothsaying, what does the future hold? What are you guys seeing there in the Princeton Review?
I did 107 lectures last year with students. Many of them are in person. I do some online. But the first thing we talk about around test optional is that, test optional does not mean you have the option to submit your test. It doesn't require you to submit your test. And so just to get the nomenclature right. But the truth is, even if a school is test optional, they will still welcome our submission of SAT and ACT scores. And to a slightly lesser degree, AP exams first, but we'll talk about that in another minute. But for SAT and ACT, they are still the grail. They are still incredibly important. Now, if a school is test optional and you and I are both applying to that school, you decide to submit your SAT and ACT scores and I decide to withhold mine, I can't be penalized. But Matt, you know as well as I that you have another criteria, another point or several points if you've taken the exam multiple times or you've taken the 2 exams that I am simply not going to have. You are going to have a leg up. You are going to have an advantage, particularly if you've done well. And if you didn't do well in the test, then exercise your test optional right to withhold it. This, to me, is so incredibly crystal clear that you have the option, take those tests, and then decide as a student, decide as a family or a counseling community, whether you're going to submit them to this school or withhold them from both, because you will then ultimately have the decision-making power rather than being hobbled if you don't take the SAT and ACT and can't apply to a school that requires it.
Great. Thank you. And again, just to recap that and confirm that, if I've taken the test, I've done well, I'm meeting with the college and university is looking for, go ahead and submit. But if I'm coming up short, take advantage of test optional, right?
1,001%. You got it.
Great. You had spoken about the rise in popularity of AP tests. And we have certainly seen that within our district. Our AP participation has increased as well as our performance, I'm happy to report.
Yeah.
But we are also an IB World School.
Yeah.
We have both the IB Diploma program and the IB Career-Related program. How is IB viewed in the world of college admissions? How are those programs rated, so to speak, in those admissions offices? And what feedback have you heard about the preparation students receive in those programs for college and university?
I am such a fan of the IB curriculum. And I love that you're noting it as the IB program, whether it's the IBDP for the diploma side or the IBCP for the career side. And the career side, we could talk about that too, because I'm super enamored with the offerings, but they are programs, right? Your students and families, those that are participating in them, understand that there's no way to do it halfway, right? You are in a program that is completely articulated, whether it's diploma and or career related. And that has power for a student going through that process throughout high school. And it certainly has power from the college admission standpoint. And the idea of the career related, the career orientation for the IBCP, again, thinking about, particularly in our modern times, that idea of, is your college degree going to be worth it? Like thinking about that idea of a career output. I really think that the IB designers for their curricula, their programs specifically, are at another level academically. They are really able to see what's going on. Okay, that's all the good stuff. The less good, let's say, is an access question. Not every school has either the diploma or the career related, but doesn't have any IB opportunities for students. So students can't be penalized if they don't go to a school and or schools that offer IB. And it is, and this is the part that is hard for me to say out loud, it is such a small percentage of students nationally that have access to an IB degree. And ultimately, It's going to benefit those students from a college admission perspective, but more students have access to AP exams. And the College Board, who creates the AP, and of course, all things SAT and PSAT, but who creates all of the AP exams, will call the AP offerings the AP program. But you and I both know, as well as your listeners, that you could take one AP class and one AP exam throughout your high school, or you could take a ton, depending on your school that's offering it. So it's not an apples to apples comparison between AP and IB.
It's not an apples to apples comparison, of course. And I certainly agree that not every school has access to the IBDP or the IBCP. I like to think that's something that distinguishes our district from others, right? Is that ability
1,000%.
to access those programs. So within my conversations with admissions representatives, they often share that they want to see that the students, the cohort of students that apply from our schools, they compare those students with each other. They're not necessarily comparing our students to Chatham or to Madison High School, to other high schools. They're comparing the cohort of students within West Morris Mendham or within West Morris Central in that admissions office. Is it fair to say that a student who has taken an IBDP, right, versus a student who has not may have a leg up amongst their cohort that applies to a Villanova or a Boston College, let's say?
I would agree without question. It's a very fair and clear statement, and I believe that is true. Absolutely.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Rob. And then the third thing you said was return on investment, right? Families are really honing in on that return of investment. And you said it's really important to investigate, is that college worth the time and investment? So how do families figure out ROI, as we like to say?
Yeah, totally. And it's the ROI question that is top of mind for you and I, because we know that costs are so dear and such a concern. And again, no matter how financially blessed or challenged folks who are listening to our conversation might be, it doesn't matter how many resources you have or how few. It matters in regards to, is that time and commitment going to be worth it? So here's the way that I tell my own students at Princeton Review. Number one, I do a ranking list. I do a couple of different ranking lists here, but from the best 191 colleges, we have a best career services ranking. Number one school on the list is Bentley University. It has been in the number one spot before. 12 miles outside of Boston. They are unapologetic about making sure that students have an outside of the classroom experience to complement what they're learning inside of the classroom. But there are many schools like that. Northeastern is a perfect example, but many other schools are like that. But they are offering a curriculum, not only in school, but bumpering it, buttressing it, complementing it with career services and career development resources that can ensure that those students are going to get great co-ops and internships and experiential learning, and then jobs of substance upon graduation. To me, this is just, and again, as we talked about before, that's just the number one school. There are 24 other schools on this list. Not to say that every other school that didn't make the top 25 aren't great, but these schools are certainly superlative based on what students are saying, current college students are saying about their career experiences. I do another project called Best Value Colleges, which I'll give you all the links to this stuff, but the Best Value Colleges, thinking about, and the total focus of this project is value and return on your investment. And it's 209 schools, I think this year, I think it's 209 schools, nicely divided between public and private, all doing, in my mind, the near impossible, not making you mortgage out your future to pay for school and providing you great return on your investment, jobs of substance upon graduation. To me, if I were the parent of a high school, or if I'm a high schooler, that's just what I would focus on, just to give me the vernacular to have a conversation when they sit with you, Matt, or your team, or they go and start to visit the Bentleys or the USCs of the world. They'll have the vernacular and the comfort with those words, that vernacular in their mouth, so that they can have that conversation. Okay, I'm yapping on, but you get it.
No, it's helpful information for our families to hear. All right, let's change gears a little bit. Our seniors right now are getting ready to hit submit on a lot of applications, and they're fine-tuning their college essays. Talk to me about college essays. How important is that? How much a lot of our students are getting really stressed about it. Talk to them a little bit about the value, the importance of a college essay, within the admissions process and how they can present themselves through that process?
Yeah, totally. Oh, and I love this question. And here's the thing. We survey just shy of 2,000 four-year colleges at the Princeton Review. So we talked about the student survey, but then I just survey college administrators. They complete data sets for us. So the deans of admission for nearly 2,000 schools. And I put this information up for free on our website. And one of the questions that we ask is, what's the pecking order? What do you value most? And number one is it's always your high school transcript, the rigor of your courses, particularly at your two schools. You're super competitive academically, and you have so many offerings for these students, and your students go on to do so well and superlatively at their schools. But GPA and rigor, of course, is always number one. Number two, as we beat down at the beginning of this conversation, standardized tests are still the grail for number two. There's a tie for three. Extracurricular activities, and I'm happy to talk about that as well, and of course, your essay. So this is just from nearly 2,000 deans and directors of admission, just the pecking order of where they place value. Tie for third. So to me, essays are incredibly important. Now, I don't say that to put so much pressure on students, but what I do tell my own students at Princeton Review is your essay is such a singular, such a unique way for you to describe something about yourself that your transcript is either never going to show or it's only going to show it quantitatively. And now you have the ability to qualitatively, your opinion, what makes you. To me, and I teach lessons at Princeton Review just on how to create good essays that are endearing, that just let you shine. Like Matt, you and I have known each other for a long time, but we were never going to write the same essay. We think a lot of the same things, yeah, but we're different people. And that is the glory of an essay. And to me, that's just the fun part of admission. I know it's scary. I know we all have writer's block, but it's such a singular and unique way, again, to describe something about yourself through an experience. And that to me is such a delight.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's just an opportunity for students really to tell them who they are, right? Other than just the numbers that you mentioned, the GPA, the test scores. Let the admissions representative see you for who you are. The authenticity of that essay cannot be understated, which leads me to my next question about AI.
Yeah.
And we could be here for hours on this topic, but how much should students be using AI in the admissions process, whether it be from a research standpoint, as an assistant in college essays or short answers? And on the other side, are admissions offices using AI to evaluate student applications?
This is a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to take the second part first. Are admission teams using AI in their evaluation work for students' applications? The answer is yes, but not all schools, particularly when it comes to college essays. And I've been doing this on a separate lecture now over the last year, a little over a year, on is there an appropriate way to use AI specifically on your college admission essays? And because like half the people just raise their hand and say it's heresy, then the other half are like, yeah, why would I not? Like I'm using like AI as my best like I have a great team, but it is my closest team member. I use AI for everything because it makes me better, smarter, and faster to get stuff out. Like I know what my talent is, but I know I can't know everything. So the likelihood that students will not be using AI is pretty slim, but putting margins around that of appropriate ways to use AI. I don't want AI to write your essay net new. That's silly, right? That doesn't serve you well. And it's certainly going to be transparent to admission teams. To get back to my original point, admission teams. I give a lecture with several schools, one of whom was WashU in St. Louis, fabulous school. And they were saying that the admission representative that I was giving this talk with was saying that they are going to be using AI technology to determine if students are using AI in crafting their essay. So there's that side of the fence. Then we had another admission first person from Rockhurst University, which is a Jesuit school in Kansas City. And he was saying, we're not going to apply using AI in college admission essays to detect if students are using it, because it's going to be as transparent to us as if your mom wrote your essay for you. So that's two ends of the spectrum. And but again, I find this super interesting because it does note how some schools are treating AI differently. But I think the lowest common denominator is schools are using AI themselves, whether it's marketing to students, research, all the things that we want people to use AI for. But they might also be using it to detect. So be smart about it. Now, listen, I should tell you right up the bat, we have 2 AI tools at Princeton Review, one of which is an essay coach for high school essays, and one of which is specifically an essay coach for college admission essays. And I tell them, because I worked on this deeply, I'm like, I know a lot about schools. I give a lot of advice to students, so you could use the brains of many to give good guidance, because not every student is going to have the same resources that they have at your schools. It's 470 students to every one counselor nationally. It's 1,000 students to every one counselor in California. Now, I know that's not the ratios at your schools, but just think about that. If you can use an AI feedback tool to give you some substantive feedback on crafting a good essay, that's more than many counselors are going to be able to spend with their students. So anyway, long-winded point of just noting that there's a blessing and a curse when it comes to AI, but there are appropriate guardrails to make sure the students are using it well.
No, for sure. I can recall one conversation with an admissions representative last year. She had said, "I long for the imperfect prose of student essays."
I'm using that line, Matt. That's funny.
It's a great line. Unfortunately, I don't know if I have her permission to give her name, so I won't. But I'm not taking credit for it. I'm not that intelligent to come up with that one. I want to go back to, you talked about extracurriculars a couple minutes ago. What's the value of extracurriculars in the admissions process? Often students and families think they need a laundry list of activities in order to really stand out. Is that the case?
It is not the case. And I will bring it to you and I as an example, right? So we both grew up in New Jersey. We both went to similar high schools. Now, the truth is that there is no perfect canon for a list of extracurricular activities that are going to be universally appealing to admission teams, right? You and I are similar, but we're also different people. The likelihood that we're both going to have the same laundry list of extracurricular activities would, 1, be unlikely, and 2, be deeply, soul crushingly boring. So when we think about it, just as you were noting with your essay, a perfect way for a student to describe an experience that makes them endear themselves to the admission, or just that admission team get to know them better. Same logic applies for extracurricular activities. So it's not just the breadth of what you're doing, the sheer number of extracurriculars, but it's the depth of what you're doing. And I also recognize that in high school, you're experimenting a lot. Maybe you did 2 years of mock trial and you're like, hey, I didn't really love mock trial. But maybe I committed to 4 years of a sport and I really liked it. And I rose to a position of leadership in that sport. And that to me is glorious. To me, it is that kind of thing. The commitment that you're making, you're experimenting. You're committing because you're figuring stuff out, and then you're rising to a leadership position. Those are the extracurriculars that matter. It's not the number. It is the experience. And any admission person worth their weight will say the same thing.
No, I appreciate that. Certainly quality over quantity for sure. Our time is winding down here, Rob. I just got a couple more questions for you. What advice do you have for students who feel overwhelmed by the pressure of the admissions process?
First of all, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed. To me, this is super fun, but I don't have to go through it. I'm advising students to go through it, and we advise a lot of them. 1 out of every 2 students that apply to college will use the Princeton Review service. I take that very seriously. But the truth is, the pressure is not on me, it is on them. And so I say that with kindness and respect. But the truth is that this process is knowable and it is navigable. And I'm talking about college admission in its component parts. Testing. Oh, if you're worried about the SAT or ACT, put it out of your mind. That's the easiest thing to change. Same thing with AP tests. Like, these are standardized tests. There is a knowledge base there. And I do this. I love to do this. I love to teach for the SAT and even for AP exams. So if that's the thing that's troubling, there are resources out there that can help you. So put that out of your mind as a worry. The number 2 thing, the idea of just being able to winnow down a list. How do you go from 3,000 plus schools in the country to the 9 or 10 that you're actually going to apply to? That can be overwhelming. And that's where I think, as we talked about before, really embracing, literally bear hugging student opinion. That's the way I think about it. I tell my own students, you can look at all the SAT and ACT scores that you want and GPAs, but you have to be happy at that school. You have to be engaged. You have to feel like it's of value to you, as we were discussing earlier. And that you can only find through student opinion. I think that we provide many of those resources, but there's other sources that do this as well. But as long as you think about that idea of really embracing the idea of what current college students are saying, this process can become not a burden, but such a glorious opportunity, really a good experience. And people are going to ask you where you went to college literally for the rest of your life, professionally and personally. And that to me means that this is a big deal. It's a great opportunity to have conversations of substance about that experience. To me, that's the glory, but this is knowable and navigable. You're going to be able to get through it.
All right. Appreciate that, Rob. My last question for you then is, what advice would you give to seniors that are listening to this podcast right now, juniors that are listening, sophomores, and then for freshmen? So each of the 4 stages here, what advice would you have?
I love this one. For seniors, I'm like, I think one, you have to remember the power of your high school transcript. Remember the schools that you're going to. Know that those schools are some of the most competitive in these United States. Have some pride of place with that. The accomplishments that you have done and you have made so far, academically and otherwise, through your high school career. That to me, I think a lot of students don't give themselves enough credit early on, and I don't know if they know the full attractiveness of the curb appeal of the high schools and the communities that they're coming from. But so that's an important thing, just to take stock of it. And listen, you're gonna show up to open houses, and all these things are going to kick in the next week of time now through the end of November, let's say middle of November. Now, I know a lot of your seniors are already thinking about applying early decision and early action and so on. But anyway, so that's what I tell the seniors. For juniors, oh boy, lots of people say your junior year is the most important of your high school career. And the truth is, that is true, because that is the last full year that admission teams are going to see when they first start to evaluate your application. Yes, of course, they will see your senior first year, your first market period, second market period. They're going to get a sense of what you're doing senior year. But junior year is so important because that's the last full year that they're going to see when they first start to evaluate your applications. But to me, juniors, and I work mostly with sophomores and juniors, is that, hey, listen, this is a knowable and navigable thing. Get out there. Bear hug this idea of getting onto campus, reading as much about student opinion as you can, asking the questions of any people that you know about where they went to school, why they chose it, what they liked. Also, from a social perspective, if you're not using social media to figure out, not just to follow the admission office at NYU, but to find out what students are actually saying at NYU, what they're actually doing, you could be a primary source of this. So that is an assignment that I sent to all of my students. Yes, you could follow the admission office, but to follow students, student activities, student-run organizations at the schools that you might be considering, only going to be of value. And of course, standard SAT and ACT and AP exams, junior year, it is the grail in my mind, because this is the year it's all coming together. Now that we already beat the value of your transcript down, but standardized tests, they're still incredibly important in the process, and this is your time to shine on them. Freshmen and sophomores, I'm just going to group those together, because this, to me, if you can think about this as an opportunity rather than a challenge, literally the college admission process as an opportunity and not just a challenge. And that, to me, is just a shift in a mindset. You are going to, all the other things, the pride of place things that we discussed, the academic, the pride around your academic, the caliber of your school and other students that have gone before you. But it is that idea of just changing my mindset. Understanding that I have to do it well in high school throughout. That's, of course, a given, but just to say it out loud. But this process is a super fun one. This is an awesome thing. You are choosing a place where you're going to go to school that somebody is going to ask you about literally through the rest of your life. And for young people, they get it. They get it. They understand the power of it, and being able to give the vernacular around it to have that conversation of substance.
No, I agree, Rob. It certainly is a great opportunity for students. And I like what you said about the power of your transcript and being proud of what you've accomplished in high school. And also to remember that the college you go to is not your identity. That doesn't make you. So don't put everything on whether or not I get the acceptance letter from this school or that school. but rather what you do with that opportunity once you're there, I think is really a great way to think about it.
Oh gosh, I totally hear you and agree. You're right. And as we discussed at the beginning, that idea of just going beyond perception and brand. I visit more schools, I'm convinced, Matt, than any other person on the planet. None of the schools that I've ever been to are in business to educate students poorly. And to me, that is the glory, right? Because all these schools are different, and because we are all different, and you're going to find the spot that's going to be a fit for you. And it honestly, as we talked about before, it goes beyond just brand and perception around brand.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. Tell the people, how can they follow you? Where can they find you online?
PrincetonReview.com is our website. I do a ton of videos on our YouTube channel. Just follow Princeton Review on YouTube, any of our social, you'll find us there. But awesome conversation today. Thanks so much, Matt.
Rob, really appreciate it. Thank you.